I'm Ben Meiselas from the MeidasTouch Network. Democratic Congress member Joe Neguse just brilliantly cross-examined and exposed MAGA Republican Congress member Clay Higgins. Clay Higgins and the MAGA Republicans want to stop the funding of our government if any of the appropriation spending bills include money devoted towards COVID relief, providing resources to fight deadly pandemics. And Clay Higgins acts like COVID is not a dangerous thing, and on a list of things, he puts it on the lower end of dangerous things. And Democratic Congressmember Joe Neguse said, COVID almost killed you, Clay Higgins. I have here in my hand a news article where you said the Delta variant almost led to your death. And even when confronted with that, watch what Clay Higgins says. Play this clip.
Question that you just posed back, whether you think COVID-19 is serious or dangerous.
I believe that perhaps the gentleman's definition of danger might be quite different from mine.
Okay. So is that a no? Or I'm trying to understand.
Well, there obviously.
Is it dangerous to you by your definition? I don't.
You know, as levels of danger concern, I would put a virus along the lines of the flu far down my list of priorities that I would consider as dangerous in my life. I have lived a life that I've stared danger in the eye many, many times, and it never resembled COVID.
Got it. Well, I'll enter into the record. I appreciate your answer. This is an article from August 13th of 2021 from a newspaper titled The Advocate. I think it's a Louisiana newspaper. The headline is Clay Higgins says COVID, quote, almost killed me, remains opposed to mandates. And there's a paragraph here, I'll quote from it just so that we're clear. It says, regarding COVID-19, Higgins, Representative Higgins, of course, told the audience of several dozen residents at the event organized by the African American Chamber of Commerce that the disease, quote, almost killed me, end quote. Quote, there was a day there when I wasn't sure y'all were going to have to tolerate me much longer, end quote, he said. Quote, my wife, my son, and I got COVID about a month ago, the Delta variant, and I've never been knocked down that hard in my life. I'm fully recovered now. My suits fit better, end quote. So
that is an accurate assessment of yes, sir, I faced death's door from the Delta variant of COVID, and I remain very heavily inoculated, having gained natural immunity and lived through that experience because I'm a healthy American and I remain unvaccinated by the experimental vaccine, which I'm sure you got. Good luck with that. But yeah, I battled COVID a couple of times. One time brought me to death's door, but here I am.
Well, so even when confronted with the fact that COVID almost killed him because he was not vaccinated, that he almost died, he sits there and he goes, well, good luck with your vaccine. And by the way, this just reminded me of some other clips of Clay Higgins. This, for example, from another committee hearing, this is Clay Higgins threatening ex-Twitter employees that he was going to arrest them for unspecified crimes based on nothing. Play this clip.
Just think about that. More House rules have failed in the last 5 days than in the last 20 years in the House of Representatives. That is House Republican control. Dysfunction. Now, most Americans might wonder, how did we get here? And I suppose, what legislative strategy has the House Republican caucus devised or developed to avoid a government shutdown? Apparently that strategy is waste an entire summer debating bills on protecting gas stoves and the like, wait 8 days before government funding runs out, and then bring before this committee and the full House a series of partisan bills that stand no chance of passing in the Senate, much less being signed into law by the president. That's why we're here. And yeah, I think I heard someone, one of your colleagues, Republican colleague, I don't know if the microphone caught it, I believe he said he's not that wrong about it, right? Is that what you said? Mr. Ogles, have a chance to testify. Maybe perhaps you can confirm whether or not my summation of the events of the past 4 months is accurate. I suspect some of my Republican colleagues will be intellectually candid and honest about it and saying that that's true, that my description of the last 3 months under Republican control is accurate. It's unfortunate because there are Border Patrol agents and members of our armed forces, federal government employees across our country who are wondering whether or not they will get a paycheck in 8 days, whether or not the Republican caucus will get their act together so that the government can remain open and running.
Here is MAGA Republican Clay Higgins still trying to spread lies about COVID death figures when he almost died of it. This was from an earlier committee hearing. Play this clip.
Inundated with data about how many people were dying allegedly of COVID. Turned out they died with COVID, but that's another story for another day.
Here is MAGA Republican Clay Higgins getting owned by the D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser, and he asks, is there any other municipality that has the access to our seat of government like Washington, D.C.? Watch this brilliant answer by the mayor of D.C. Play this clip.
You've just testified regarding your specific role, your personal role in the days leading up to January 6th in the D.C. National Guard. Do you have counsel present, ma'am?
No.
Do you wish to amend your testimony in any way regarding what you stated today?
I do not.
Very well. Mayor Bowser, you are the mayor of Washington, D.C., correct?
I am.
And Washington, D.C. is the capital of the United States of America, correct?
It is.
The Capitol is the home of the entire seat of our government, the executive branch, the legislative branch, the judicial branch. The president is here, the vice president is here, 435 congressional offices, 100 Senate offices, the Supreme Court. All departments of the government are headquartered here. All agencies are headquartered here. In your knowledge, you're a very intelligent American. You have a clear understanding of history. In your knowledge, ma'am, is there any other municipality in these United States that has access to our seat of government as the citizens of Washington, D.C.?
Actually, they all have more access because they have voting members of Congress and
I'll
two
ask
senators.
you to restrict your answers to my question. So let's go there.
And this is just Clay Higgins being, well, Clay Higgins. Play this clip.
No, you're out. You're out. You're out. You're out. You're out. Aren't you a congressperson touching me? Get off me.
Someone video this. Get this on video.
Get off me.
Get this on video. This is assault.
Get off me.
This is
What are you trying to do,
assault.
Clay Higgins? You're a U.S. congressman touching a person. You can't get him off the street. Get off me.
Let go of him.
Let him
You calm down.
Let him You calm down. You need to calm down. Calm down, sir.
Yes, and Clay Higgins was also the member of Congress who assaulted an activist. Here, play this clip. Remember this?
You, ladies and gentlemen, interfered with the United States of America 2020 presidential election, knowingly and willingly. That's the bad news. It's going to get worse because this is the investigation part. Later comes the arrest part. Your attorneys are familiar with that. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to spend 5 hours with these ladies and gentlemen during depositions surely yet to come. But for right now, I'll yield the balance of my time to my colleague, Mr. Jordan.
So as I thought about that cross-examination, that brilliant cross-examination earlier in the video of Democratic Congress member Joe Neguse, it reminded me of some other brilliant cross-examinations by Democratic members of Congress of MAGA Republicans and MAGA Republican witnesses. Like, remember this right here, where Democratic Congress member Krishnamoorthi cross-examined the MAGA Republican witnesses who claimed to be whistleblowers regarding the Hunter Biden prosecution. And they were saying, here's all the bad things that happened with the Republican prosecutor Trump appointed, David Weiss. And Democratic Congress member Krishnamoorthi points out, Those things happened when Trump was in office. Trump was in office then. You're conflating the space-time continuum, MAGA Republicans, to spread your disingenuous agenda. Play this clip.
You were concerned about the complexities of the election cycle and potential delays that arose in connection with the election cycle. You said at page 23, and I remember there were always times where we were always on an impending election cycle. It was always the elections being brought up in early 2020. It was the presidential primaries. Now, sir, Joe Biden was not the president at that time either, was he?
I mean, the answer to your question is no, he was not, but I don't see where you referenced it in my, for me to
Page
follow
23.
along.
You're talking about how the election cycle is delaying decisions by the prosecution. And it turns out that the delay in the election cycle was happening at a time when Joe Biden was not the president.
I'm sorry, sir. That's in Special Agent Ziegler's transcript. That's why I couldn't find it.
So, Mr. Ziegler and you shared concerns about delays related to the election cycle, but at that time, Joe Biden was not the president.
I believe at that time he was the nominee for president.
But, well, he was not the president, was he? It's just a simple question, sir.
Can you rephrase what time period?
Joe Biden was not the president in the presidential primaries in 2020.
Correct. That is correct.
Sir, finally, Mr. Shapley, you said that warrants were ready as soon as April 2020 to begin searching for records, but actions weren't taken with regard to those warrants. Again, Joe Biden was not the president in April 2020, was he?
So I'm confused by your line of questioning. We're talking about an election to which now President Biden was a part of. So he didn't have to be the president to have election meddling.
No, but the question is this. Was he the president at that time in April 2020?
It's been asked and answered.
And what's the answer, sir?
The election
The answer is yes or no?
is no.
Thank you.
And,
Thank you. I yield back.
Mr.
Oh, and I love this. Remember from an earlier hearing as well, Democratic Congress member Debbie Wasserman Schultz cross-examining the MAGA Republican witness Matt Taibbi, who did the Twitter file story and disingenuously reported these kind of false narratives. Play this clip.
Journalistic ethics and information sources. The Society of Professional Journalists Code of Ethics asserts that journalists should avoid political activities that can compromise integrity or credibility. Being a Republican witness today certainly casts a cloud over your objectivity. But a deeper concern that I have relates to the ethics of how journalists receive and present certain information. Journalists should avoid accepting spoon-fed, cherry-picked information if it's likely to be slanted, incomplete, or designed to reach a foregone, easily disputed, or invalid conclusion. Would you agree with that?
I think it depends.
Really? You wouldn't agree that a journalist should avoid spoon-fed, cherry-picked information if it's likely to be slanted, incomplete, or designed to reach a foregone, easily disputed, or invalid conclusion?
Congresswoman, I've done probably a dozen stories involving whistleblowers. Every reported story that I've ever done across 3 decades involves sources who have motives. Every time you do a story, you're making a balancing test between the public interest.
Reclaiming my time. Thank you very much.
Okay.
I ask you this because before you became Elon Musk's hand-picked journalist, and pardon the oxymoron, you stated this on Joe Rogan's podcast about being spoon-fed information, and I quote, "I think that's true of any kind of journalism," and you'll see it behind me here. "I think that's true of any kind of journalism. Once you start getting handed things, then you've lost. They have you at that point, and you got to get out of that habit. You just can't cross that line." Do you still believe what you told Mr. Rogan? Yes or no? Yes or no?
Yes.
Good. Now, you crossed that line with the Twitter files.
No.
Elon Musk, it's my time. Please do not interrupt me. Elon Musk spoon-fed you his cherry-picked information, which you must have suspected promotes a slanted viewpoint, or at the very least generates another right-wing conspiracy theory. You violated your own standard, and you appear to have benefited from it.
And here, Debbie Wasserman Schultz again cross-examining one of the MAGA Republican witnesses, Jonathan Torley. By the way, a lawyer who teaches at George Washington University Law School, who's become like this MAGA Republican, talking head. And here the Democratic Congress member Wasserman Schultz says, so other than you read articles, do you have any experience here? And then he's like, nah, play the clip.
Thank you so much. Mr. Turley, turning to you, have you ever worked for Twitter?
No.
Do you have any formal relationship with the company?
No, I just have an account.
Do you have any specific or special or unique knowledge about the inner workings of Twitter?
Nothing beyond the Twitter files and what I read in the media.
So essentially, your responses to the questions here today were your own opinion and pure conjecture.
No, I wouldn't say that. I mean, I try to base them on what we know from the Twitter files.
Well, but you said that you don't have any specific or unique knowledge of Twitter, but you spoke as if you did. You were asked very specific questions about Twitter's, the way Twitter functions and the decision-making that they make, but yet you don't have any unique or special knowledge about Twitter and have never worked for them. And so this is only just your opinion, would you say, as a Twitter account user?
No, I've come to give legal analysis based on facts that are in the public domain, and I was really referring to what I was asked about the Twitter files.
Reclaiming my time, legal analysis is another word for opinion.
I would think there is some distinction, but yeah, it ultimately is an opinion, but I believe the question to me was based on what the Twitter files show, and that was my reading of the Twitter files.
Right. And again, that's another way of describing your opinion being offered, which was represented as unique and special fact, which you don't possess. Thank you. I yield back the balance of my time.
Here is Democratic Congress member Dan Goldman cross-examining one of the MAGA Republican witnesses. Play the clip.
Because you said in your Twitter files, am I correct, that every single fact in the New York Post story was accurate?
Yes.
Okay. Do you recall that the first paragraph of that Post story said that then Vice President Joe Biden pressured Ukraine to fire its prosecutor general because he was investigating Burisma, where Hunter Biden was on the board?
Yes.
Okay. I have here, which I'd like to enter into the record, the Trump-Ukraine impeachment inquiry report, 300 pages by the House Intelligence Committee. Did you review this report before you said that every fact in this story was accurate?
Without objection, the material be entered in the record.
Did I read that before I wrote the Twitter files? No.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm aware
because
of its
if
content.
you read this, you would have known that every single State Department and Trump administration expert on Ukraine said that Vice President Joe Biden, in concert with the European Union and the IMF, was executing official U.S. policy by encouraging Ukraine to fire the prosecutor general because he was not prosecuting corruption and was not prosecuting companies like Burisma. So that story, notwithstanding your allegations, was false, and I yield back.
And so, folks, one of the things I want to show you, I could show you a lot more of those clips, but you get the point. When I promote on the MeidasTouch network, it's not even so much partisan. Like, yes, do my views line up more closely with the Democratic Party? They do, but that's because you see here, Democrats are engaged in a thorough examination of the facts. I mean, how are you supposed to take a MAGA Republican seriously who almost died of COVID because he was unvaccinated and then engages in that conduct and then wants to deprive other people and deprive people of having government resources who want to take care of themselves? Like, it comes down to a point where we're talking about like basic hygiene. Like MAGA Republicans just like denying existence of very obvious things and then say, whatever. Like, I'm sorry, that's not the kind of government, that's not the leadership that I want. That's not leadership at all. Hit subscribe. We're on our way to 2 million subscribers. Thanks to your support. Check us out at patreon.com/MeidasTouch. Have a great day.
Hey, Midas Mighty, love this report? Continue the conversation by following us on Instagram at MeidasTouch to keep up with the most important news of the day. What are you waiting for? Follow us now.